This is an oral history interview conducted for the Witness to War Serving a Nation project at Nauset Regional High School on Cape Cod, Massachusetts. For the sake of this interview, please state your full name and community in which you now reside.
My name is Ryan Peter Doolittle, and I live in Wethersfield, Connecticut.
What was your childhood like growing up?
Growing up, I spent a lot of time my father's garage. I worked a lot with him on cars, trucks, automotive things like that. I'd usually go there after school, sometimes in the morning before school, and help him out with that. Other than that, a lot of sports, soccer, basketball, a little bit of football towards the end.
How old were you when you joined the Marines?
I just turned 18. Actually, I turned 18 on March 5th, and March 6th is when I actually signed to go in.
So what inspired you to join the Marines?
It was something I always wanted to do. I had one family member in it. They were drafted in World War II, and it kind of always interested me to, be a part of something like that. Just the experience is just that, you see the commercials on TV, and it just kind of sparked my interest.
Which family member of yours joined, or was drafted? Sorry.
He was drafted. It was my grandfather in World War II. So he was drafted into the Army and served in Germany for the war.
So how did your family react to first learning that you were going into the Marines?
My parents were upset about it at first. Like I said before, I'd helped my father in his garage, and it was kind of like that was the path that he wanted me to go, work on cars and vehicles. So when it came time to enlist, and they knew I would go a certain path and not be around as much, so they weren't too happy with that, and I think just the general safety of what I was getting involved in. So,
what war did you serve in?
I served in Operation Iraqi Freedom.
And what was boot camp like?
Boot camp was tough. There was it was a lot of training of the military customs and courtesies. So you have to learn all that, and a lot of it was physical too. So they did a lot of training for you to respond to a senior officer or a senior rank in a way that isn't going to jeopardize the safety of a lot of people in a situation that like being caught in Iraq. But there's a lot of walking, a lot of marching, rifle range, learn how to shoot, and just general customs and courtesies of how the Marines do things. So.
Going back to what you said earlier, that you served in Operation Iraqi Freedom,
Yes.
Could you explain what operation means?
Operation is just the general deployment of everybody in that vicinity in Iraq there. There was different battles within that whole operation of Iraq, and different locations, cities and stuff like that, but generally the operation was just going to Iraq and what they wanted to do there.
Where were you stationed?
In the United States. I was stationed my permanent duty station was California, Oceanside, California, which is about 30 minutes north of San Diego.
And when were you deployed?
I got deployed in 2004 to 2005, and then 2006 to 2007.
Please describe your thoughts and feelings as you got off the plane in Iraq.
When I got off the plane in Iraq, it was weird because we flew into Kuwait City first on a civilian aircraft, and I just remember being extremely hot, and just everything dried out. Your mouth was dry, your nose was dry, and a lot of people were getting nosebleeds just because they weren't acclimated to the heat in that area. Iraq was no different. It was about 115 degrees, so you're instantly sweating. And, I was nervous because we came in on a large cargo plane, and when they come in, it's not like a gradual descent, like you fly out of here or anything. They stay up high just in case people are shooting at the plane coming in. So they stay up high and they drop down rapidly like that. And they shoot flares, missile flares off. So when you're looking out the window, you just see sparks flying everywhere while you're dropping down like that. So it was pretty intense to fly into somewhere like that, and have that go on, because you really don't know what's going on at that point.
So because Kuwait and Iraq were so hot, did you ever get sick?
I never got sick, but the first 2 or 3 weeks, my nose, it was constantly bleeding. If you touch like that, it would just start bleeding. So.
Please describe the environment you worked in the first time you served in Iraq.
The first time in Iraq, it was no doubt sandy. It was a lot of sand, sandstorms. There's no real vegetation where I was, so the wind, would just pick up the sand, and at night in the headlights, it looked like snow was falling, So, just real hot. At night it was hot. During the day it was even hotter, and we slept in tents, under trucks for the shade. It was just nothing like around here. No trees, no grass really where we were. So. Describe your
experiences with bombs, IEDs, and any other explosive devices.
Once I got established in Iraq, there, we would do convoys out to the city and do supply missions to people that were staying out in the city. The IEDs were a huge threat to us. What they would do is plant an IED, and there was different types of IEDs. There's pressure plate IEDs, so when the trucks would go over them, the weight would trigger the IED to go off. And they would set up one in the front of the convoy and then a remote one in the back to kind of like block you into the road. So that was scary. That's scary. They bury them, and you really can't see them at night. A lot of the operations were at night. So there was quite a few convoys that got hit, and fortunately we found a lot of them too. So it was scary to have them go off. One, no one knows what's going to happen after, and to have that happen and someone get hit in your platoon is, no one wants that.
Going back to what you said about a convoy, could you please explain what that is?
Yeah, convoy is it was about 20 to 25 trucks, and they're all spaced maybe 60 feet apart, and that's how we traveled through the city. In case something happened to one, it wouldn't take out the whole line of trucks. We'd carry everything on there from water to food, ammunition, anything that you needed to support people with out in the city. That's what we would bring along.
And what did you specifically do over in Iraq? Like, what was your job?
My job was heavy equipment. I was a heavy equipment operator, which includes everything from bulldozers to cranes to loaders, any material handling equipment, and earth-moving equipment. We would build berms to surround buildings that we were staying in out in the city. We would knock down buildings with the equipment. Anything that we needed to move any sort of supply with, that's what we used to do it.
Okay, so I've never been in the military before, so I would just like to ask, what kind of equipment did you have to wear to protect yourself?
The equipment, it was pretty much a bulletproof vest, and just like you see police officers wear. What they had inside of them was plates around your vital organs. So you'd have them in the front, in the back, and on the sides. And then there was neck neck guards like that for shrapnel that would come off, if there's an explosion or anything like that. Your typical helmet. You carried a lot of stuff on. There's always straps for, your rounds for your rifle, the ammunition that you were carrying, grenades. You'd have those. Other than that, it was just typical pants, military pants, battle fatigues, and steel-toed boots.
Was it heavy?
It was heavy. It gets heavy, especially hot and heavy. So, you're always carrying around your rifle with you, at least a rifle, and whether you had a sidearm, a pistol, or anything else, everything that you need to fire one of those.
Did you ever have to use any of those weapons you just described?
I did. When we did the convoys out to the city, there'd be a lot of things going on out there, and you're concentrated on your mission, but you would get shot at going through the city, and you'd fire back, obviously. But the majority of the rounds that I fired was on a machine gun on top of a truck. So that's kind of where I shot the most out of my rifle.
Could you please describe a typical day you would have while serving in Iraq?
Yeah. It was typically like a job that you would have around here. You'd be on a certain shift, whether it be a 12-hour shift or a 14-hour shift. So you'd arrive, you know where you were going that day, you knew if they were going to supply out in the field or if we were doing stuff on our base. And you would just do the unload aircraft that were coming in, build berms, and if you're going outside the wire, which is outside the main base to the city, you would know that and be prepared for that. You'd be preparing for that all day.
So were you assigned to a certain group of, were you assigned with a certain group of people that you would stay with and work with?
Yep. I got deployed with a whole, it was a company, which is, multiple people, upwards of 100 people from California. And some people would go off and do different duties out there, but for the most part, we were all together.
What kind of a relationship did you have with those people?
It's very close. It's almost like your family. You're with each other 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and there's really not much you can do other than what you're there for. So, there's really no time by yourself, and you're always talking, you're always learning new stuff about people that are around you. So.
What activities did you do when you had free time in Iraq, or did you not have free time?
No, we had free time. Eventually, later on in the deployments, we had a gym, so you could go to the gym. They had some concession stands that, the locals would come in and sell stuff, to everybody. Almost like a little market there. They would cut our hair. The locals would cut our hair, and that was pretty much it, really. We'd play baseball or volleyball or something like that, just out in the open. So, there was internet access. You can get on the internet at one point out there. So, there was things to fill your time. A lot of movies.
Did you have to do required workouts?
When I was deployed, I didn't. It wasn't something that you had to do. They didn't test you on it. There was no physical test like there is back in the States. You would just, I took it as it was my job to stay, in shape like that and able to do what I could do back here. So I tended to do it. So
going back to what you said a few minutes ago about the markets,
yep.
Did you have contact with people living in Iraq that were just regular everyday people?
Yep. They would stay out in the city, and then however they chose the vendors that were able to come on the base, which I'm sure there was some sort of background check on them. They would allow them to come on and sell, whatever it is they were selling, rugs, carpets. So.
Did you make any friends with those people from Iraq?
Not really. No, obviously there's a communication barrier. You only know the essential things to say, you know. So I never really became close to anybody.
What was your best memory from your experience with war?
It had to be the people I was with. I still keep in touch with a lot of them now, and a lot of them live in Ohio, so it's hard to, kind of see each other. But with the internet and phone, stay in touch with that. So that bond that you have with them and the things we experienced, that never goes away. So.
What was your darkest memory from war?
The darkest. That was that's a tough one. There was 2 weeks that I was put on mortuary affairs there, and it was loading anybody that got killed in Iraq, and we put them on what they called the angel flights. So it was just a huge cargo plane with caskets. We would put them in caskets and then send them back to the States. So that was pretty tough to see, how many people were actually getting injured and killed, So, and the media back here, would never, if 1 or 2 people got killed in something, that's not, pressing for news. It would take 15, 20, and it'd be a catastrophe. So it was hard to see, the accumulation of people that were being killed over there.
So was everyone in your group assigned this duty at some point? Or?
No. Some people couldn't do it. They didn't want to do it. I volunteered for a couple weeks to do it. And, no one wants to do something like that. So, but it's a job that has to be done. So that's why I've kind of volunteered for that.
So how did you contact family and friends while you were in Iraq? Because you mentioned something about the internet.
Yep. There was internet access later on my second deployment, and you had the internet for, it was a thing they called Moto Mail, and it was just like kind of like a direct line, I guess, back here to the States, and it would print off at a location, and they would send it to, family or whoever you're sending it to by mail.
Please describe your thoughts and feelings when Saddam Hussein was executed.
That really, it didn't make a difference to a lot of people for me and a lot of people I was with. Obviously everybody was happy that they had caught him and he had been tried for, what he had done. But when he was executed, it didn't really matter because, we were there doing what we had to do, and yeah, it was a big step for everybody, but we knew we were still going to be there.
So were you deployed at that time?
I was, yep.
And what was the base's reaction?
It was really, people knew about it, and there really wasn't a celebration or anything like that, like you would expect. We just kind of carried on doing what we were doing, and we didn't get a lot of information on it either. Like we don't have the news where they can cover it like that. So it was all kind of like just what you hear. So no one really knew.
Who had the biggest impact on you during your service?
It was the guys in my platoon, the ones that you're closest with. They help you through it. You have good days, you have bad days, and they're always there. So they help you through, and you do the same for them. So.
Could you just clarify what a platoon is?
Yeah, the platoon is the group of us that were all heavy equipment. That was our job. So it was everybody that was in that job with the company I was with.
Describe your thoughts and feelings when you found out you were being deployed a second time to Iraq.
I really didn't mind going back a second time. There was, it was a different location out there. Everything was different, essentially the same job, but you see different places, and that was one of the reasons why I joined, is to do it, to go to places. Um, so it didn't make a difference to me, and a lot of people were like that in the military, in the Marines. They wanted to go back. They would volunteer to go back in their 4-year term. So,
What did you do between the time you came home from the first time and between the time you were deployed the second time?
It was training. You would come back from Iraq and you'd go to a desert in California and you would train as much as you can, different tactics, on how the enemy was, using the IEDs or different weapons that they had found, and you just kind of fine tune the mistakes that people made and be aware of them. So it was from Iraq to another desert, so, and then right back over.
So did you not go home between that time?
There was I had a week or 2 weeks that I came back home to see family and stuff like that. But that goes by quick when you're wanting to do that. So
Describe the emotions you felt when you came home after the first or the second time from being deployed.
I was happy to be home the first time and the second time. That never goes away. But once you leave somewhere like that, there's people that you know and you want to be there with them. So you're kind of torn between the two places. But it's always good to have a break. So it was good to come back.
Where did you consider home since you moved often?
It's funny because I liked California a lot, where I was stationed, and it was right next to the beach, just like here. So, California was my home with the people I was with. I probably came back here to the Cape maybe 3 times the whole 4 years. So you're kind of split between the two places,
How did your family react to your return?
Oh, they were happy. Yeah. It went years or a year in between when I saw them. So they were definitely happy to see me again. And, not injured and healthy. So.
If you could go back and change whatever you wanted, what would you change?
I wouldn't change anything about the, enlisting in the military or where I went or anything like that. You learn a lot being 18 years old and you get deployed somewhere like that. You learn a lot and you grow up real fast. So I wouldn't change anything.
Since you were 18 when you were enlisted, did you go right after high school?
I did, yep. It was, I turned 18 in March and graduated in June high school, and in October I went to boot camp.
If a young child or high school student came up to you and said they wanted to serve in the Marines in the future, just like you, what would your advice to them be?
Absolutely. I would recommend it to them, and you're protected well when you get deployed, and you trust the people that are around you. Just the experience for something like that, I do recommend it.
Recently, the president said he wouldn't put troops on the ground in Iraq. How do you feel about the president's decision?
The president's decision to not keep troops or put troops back, with all the things going on nowadays, I think it's necessary. I think you do need to, consider putting people back there. And, it may not be a popular option, and no one wants to have their family go over there and do stuff like that. But for our way of life, you're going to have to.
Have you talked to your platoon about that recently?
No, I haven't. Not yet. Our contract was up, so kind of, we'd be excluded from something like that. But no, we haven't really talked about it.
Well, before this interview, I was talking to you that your occupation right now is construction.
Yep.
Why did you choose to go into construction?
I had that in mind before I went into the military. It's funny, I actually did a job for someone. I got paid a lot of money when I was like 16 years old doing construction work, digging a hole for them, and it just kind of stuck with me. So that's why I kind of was attracted to it.
What comes to your mind when you hear the word Iraq?
It's a mixed emotion. A lot of things go through your head when you hear that. You start remembering things or things that you forgot about. Come when someone says it, and it's different every time. You think about people that are there or were there, and what happened and stuff like that.
Did you have any women in your platoon?
There were a couple women in the platoon and the company that I was with. Actually, not specific to my platoon, but in our overall company, there were a couple of them.
Since you were deployed twice, how did your family react to you leaving the second time?
The second time, they actually calmed down a little bit for it. Not that everything's going to be all right, but you know how the process goes. When I went over there the first time, I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know how it worked or what the living conditions were going to be like and stuff like that. So you just know how it's going to go, and they saw me come back safe once, so they know it's not the end of it when you go. So
was it easier going back the second time than the first time?
It was. It was a lot easier. Yeah. You knew the work that we were doing over there to make the living conditions better. You knew what they were doing, so you knew going back it wasn't going to be as bad.
What kind of items were you allowed to bring to Iraq?
You could bring civilian clothes, like I'm wearing now. You wouldn't really wear them, but you can bring things from home, nothing too bulky. It's pretty much, I went over there with a tall bag, and just everything that you need, mostly military issue items, but that was really it. That's all you really need,
So, what was the food like in boot camp or Iraq?
The food in boot camp was, I thought it was pretty good, but I'm not picky with stuff like that. But you really didn't get a lot of time to eat. It was just, you're moving quick, and it wasn't sit down and eat at boot camp. So you were moving. Sometimes you ate a little bit, and sometimes you ate a lot.
What about the food in Iraq?
The food in Iraq, it depends what you were doing. There was if you were on the main base, you would have, more of a meal. If you were out on the road, you'd eat the MREs, the meal ready to eat, which were just, it could be spaghetti that had a heater in it in small proportions. But, I didn't think it was that bad. It was pretty good.
Could you describe the base's environment in Iraq?
Yeah, it was pretty much part of the, a little town that we took over, and it had, a big rock wall around it with towers. It had paved roads just like, around here. And we slept in the beginning in tents, and then we switched to trailers. You'd sleep in there with 4 people. There was all these barriers, like a U-shaped barrier with sandbags on top of it, because we would get mortar fire, and an alarm would go off when they knew a mortar was coming into the base. So there was always places where you could cover up and get undercover. So
did you ever have to were you ever attacked with mortars? Did you have to go?
We did, yeah. More the second time than the first time. They started coming onto the base and shooting them off. you know, it was a normal occurrence, and you know, we knew what we were going to be, you know, experience. So, you know, they had things to take care of it.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for your service.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Glad you could be here with us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You.